2000, Tokyo, Japan. The Setagaya district, a quiet residential neighborhood. Families are preparing for the New Year holiday. Houses are decorated. Streets are calm. In one home, a family of 4 is settling in for the evening. Mikio Miyazawa, 44 years old, his wife Yasuko, 41, and their 2 children, Niina, 8, and Rei, 6. By morning, all 4 will be dead, and despite one of the most extensive investigations in Japanese history, their killer has never been found. This is the story of the Setagaya Family Murders, a crime that shocked Japan, a family slaughtered in their own home. The killer left behind an extraordinary amount of evidence: DNA, fingerprints, clothing, food he ate, water he drank, items he touched. More evidence than investigators usually find in a lifetime, and yet, no arrest has ever been made. The killer remains unknown. The case remains unsolved. It is considered one of the most baffling mysteries in modern Japanese criminal history. The Miyazawa family lived in a small house in Setagaya, a district in southwestern Tokyo. The house was 2 stories, modest, tucked into a quiet residential area. Mikio worked for a London-based management consulting firm. Yasuko was a housewife. Their children, Niina and Rei, attended local schools. The family was well-liked, ordinary, unremarkable. They had no known enemies, no disputes, no debts, no reason anyone would want them dead. On the evening of December 30th, the family was home. Mikio was working in his second-floor office. Yasuko and the children were on the first floor. The house was quiet, normal. At some point that evening, someone entered the home. The intruder climbed through a small window in the bathroom on the second floor. The window was unlocked. It faced a small park. The intruder entered silently, and then he began to kill. Mikio was attacked first. He was in his office on the second floor. He was stabbed multiple times. He fought back. There were defensive wounds on his hands, his arms, but he was overpowered. He died in his office. The killer then went downstairs. Niina was in the living room. She was stabbed. She died quickly. Yasuko heard the commotion. She came to her daughter. She was attacked, stabbed repeatedly. She tried to protect her children, but she was killed. Rei, the youngest, was found in the loft area. He was strangled. All 4 members of the family were murdered within a short period of time, and then the killer stayed. This is what makes the Setagaya case so unusual. After killing the family, the intruder did not flee. He stayed in the house for hours. He ate food from the refrigerator, ice cream, barley tea. He used the toilet. He logged onto the family computer, browsing the internet. He changed into clothing he found in the house, leaving his own bloody clothes behind. He moved through the rooms, touching items, leaving fingerprints, leaving traces. And then, at some point in the early morning hours, he left, through the front door, calmly, as if he had all the time in the world. The bodies were discovered on December 31st, in the morning. Yasuko's mother lived next door. She had not heard from the family. She became worried. She entered the house through the back door. She found the bodies. She called the police. Officers arrived within minutes. The scene was horrific. Blood throughout the house. For bodies, a family slaughtered, but also an unusual amount of evidence. The killer had left behind items. A small knife, used in the attack. A sashimi knife, also used. Both were from the Miyazawa kitchen, but he had also brought items with him. A hip bag, a small black pouch. Inside were sand, fragments that suggested he had been near a U.S. military base. His clothing, a jacket, sweater, scarf, all foreign brands. Rare in Japan. The jacket was from a brand sold primarily in California and on U.S. military bases. The shoes were a Korean brand, rare, specific. DNA was collected from the clothing, from food he had eaten, from the toilet, from items he had touched. A full profile was created. The killer was male. Analysis suggested he was of mixed heritage, possibly East Asian and European. His blood type was A. He was young, estimated to be between 15 and 25 years old at the time of the murders. He had injuries, cuts on his hands from a struggle with Mikio. His blood was found mixed with the victims. Fingerprints were lifted, more than 100 of them, from surfaces throughout the house. Clear, identifiable prints. The killer had made no effort to hide them. He had touched everything. Walls, doors, the computer, the refrigerator. It was as if he did not care, or did not believe he would ever be caught. The investigation began immediately. The Tokyo Metropolitan Police formed a task force. Hundreds of officers were assigned. The house was processed meticulously. Every surface, every item, every trace. The evidence was cataloged, analyzed, stored. The DNA profile was entered into Japanese databases. No match. The fingerprints were checked against millions of records. No match. The clothing brands were traced. Investigators traveled to California, to South Korea, to U.S. military bases. They interviewed thousands of people. They followed every lead, but nothing resulted in an arrest. The case became a national obsession. In Japan, violent crime is rare. Murder is even rarer. A family massacre in a quiet neighborhood was unheard of. The media covered the case extensively. The public demanded answers. Theories circulated. Was the killer a foreigner? A U.S. military member? A Korean national? Was he connected to the family? Or was it random? A stranger? A psychopath? Police pursued every angle. They investigated Mikio's work. He had traveled internationally. He had business contacts. Could someone from his professional life be involved? No evidence supported this. They investigated the family's personal life. Friends, neighbors, relatives. No disputes. No conflicts. No motive. They investigated local crime. Burglaries. Break-ins. Could this have been a robbery gone wrong? But nothing was stolen. Money was left in the house. Valuables untouched. It was not a robbery. The computer use was puzzling. After the murders, the killer had logged onto the family's computer. He accessed websites. He browsed for hours. Investigators traced the activity. He had visited sites related to theater, to drama, sites about a local drama group that Mikio had been involved with. Was the killer connected to this group? Police interviewed every member, checked every alibi. No connection was found. The sand found in the hip bag was analyzed. It contained particles consistent with sand from Edwards Air Force Base in California. Could the killer have been stationed there? Could he have recently traveled from there? U.S. military officials were contacted. Personnel records were checked. Thousands of servicemen were investigated. DNA samples were requested voluntarily. None matched. The clothing brands were traced to manufacturers. The jacket, a brand called Phaedra, was sold primarily in California. Only a few thousand were produced. Police obtained customer lists, sales records. They tracked down buyers. They interviewed them. None were connected. The shoes, Korean brand, Slazenger, were rare. Only sold in limited markets. Police traveled to South Korea. They traced distributors. They followed leads. All led nowhere. In the years following the murders, the case was re-examined repeatedly. New technology was applied. Genealogy databases were searched. DNA was retested. Facial reconstructions were created based on genetic markers. Images were released showing what the killer might look like. Asian features. Young. Male. But still no match. No identification. The house where the murders occurred was demolished in 2005. The Miyazawa family could not bear to keep it. It was torn down. A small park was built on the site. A memorial was placed. Flowers are left regularly. People visit. They pay respects. They remember a family, ordinary, kind, who were killed for no apparent reason. Every year, on December 30th, police hold a public appeal. They set up a booth near the former home. They distribute flyers. They ask for information. They remind the public that the case is still open, still active, that the killer has never been found, that justice has not been served. And every year, tips come in, but none have led to an arrest. The case remains one of the most frustrating in Japanese law enforcement history. The evidence is overwhelming. DNA, fingerprints, clothing, items. More than enough to identify someone. More than enough to convict. But without a suspect, the evidence is useless. It sits in storage, waiting for a match, for a name, for a breakthrough that has not come. Theories persist. Some believe the killer was a young man, possibly a teenager, who lived near a U.S. military base, who had access to American goods, who traveled between Japan and the United States, who knew the family, or knew of them, who had a grudge, a perceived slight, a motive only he understood. But this is speculation. No evidence supports it definitively. Others believe the killer was a drifter, a transient, someone passing through Tokyo, who broke into the house randomly, who killed on impulse, who stayed out of curiosity, out of a disturbed need to experience the scene, who left Japan shortly after, who may have died or been imprisoned elsewhere. But again, this is theory, not fact. Some investigators believe the killer is still in Japan, living a normal life, working, blending in, confident that he will never be caught, that the evidence, while abundant, will never lead to him, because he is not in any database, because his DNA, his fingerprints, have never been recorded, because he has avoided detection for more than 20 years. The question remains, how can someone leave so much evidence and still remain unidentified? In most cases, DNA or fingerprints are enough, but only if the person is in a database, only if they have been arrested, tested, recorded. If the killer had no prior criminal record, if he was never fingerprinted, never gave DNA, then the evidence, no matter how abundant, leads nowhere. Japan's DNA database is smaller than those in the United States or Europe. Voluntary DNA collection is less common. Privacy laws are stricter. This has hampered the investigation. International cooperation has been sought. DNA profiles have been shared with other countries, but no match has been found. The case has also highlighted limitations in investigative methods. Japan has a very low crime rate. Violent crime is rare. Law enforcement is not accustomed to serial killers, to random violence, to unsolved massacres. The Setagaya case forced a reckoning. It exposed gaps. It led to changes in how evidence is collected, stored, shared, but did not solve the case. The Miyazawa family is remembered. Mikio, a dedicated father, a hard-working professional. Yasuko, a loving mother, devoted to her children. Niina and Rei, bright, innocent, with their whole lives ahead of them. They were killed in their own home, on the eve of a new year, a time of hope, of celebration. Instead, their lives were ended, violently, senselessly. Their extended family has lived with the loss for more than 2 decades. Yasuko's mother, who discovered the bodies, was traumatized. She has since passed away. Mikio's family, Yasuko's family, all have carried the grief, the unanswered questions, the absence of justice. They have waited, hoped, prayed that someday, killer will be found. The case remains open. The evidence remains stored. DNA samples are preserved. Fingerprints are on file. Technology improves. Databases grow. There is hope, always hope, that a match will be found. That genealogy, or travel records, or some new piece of information will finally provide a name. But hope fades with time, and time is running out. The killer, if alive, would be in his 40s now. He may have a family, a career, a normal life. He may think about what he did, or he may have forgotten, moved on, convinced he is safe, that the evidence, abundant as it is, will never touch him. But the evidence waits, silent, patient, in a police archive in Tokyo. DNA, fingerprints, clothing, items touched, a full profile of a killer, everything needed to convict, except a name. The story of the Setagaya Family Murders does not end here, because it has not ended. The case is still open. Investigators still work. DNA is still tested. Genealogy searches continue. International databases are checked, and somewhere, perhaps, an answer waits. A relative submits DNA for ancestry testing. A traveler's records are re-examined. A witness remembers something, and the breakthrough comes. But for now, the case remains unsolved. The Miyazawa family is gone. The house is gone. But the memory remains. Of a family, ordinary, kind, killed on the eve of a new year. Of a killer who left everything behind except his name. Of a mystery that has haunted Japan for more than 20 years. The silence is heavy. The waiting is long. And the question, unanswered, lingers. Who killed the Miyazawa family? And will we ever know?